Plan scope management. First process of scope management, project scope management knowledge area. And in PMP, we talk about planning things before we do it. So the plan scope management gives us two outputs, scope management plan and requirement management plan. The scope management plan is used throughout the scope management knowledge area, and these both plans, scope management plan and requirement management plan, are also a part of subsidiary plan of project management plan. So they will become part of project management plan, subsidiary plan of project management plan. Now the scope management plan talks about how are we going to define, develop, execute, control, validate scope. So the complete life cycle of the scope, how are we going to manage the life cycle of the scope, is defined in scope management plan. What does it mean? It means at what level we should define the work breakdown structure, at what frequency we should take acceptance from the stakeholder, what is the process of taking acceptance or a validation from customers, that is defined. Are we going to follow a demonstration, or we are going to follow some frequent releases? What approach we will follow for this is defined in scope management plan. The requirement management plan talks about how are we going to collect, refine, prioritize, after that trace back to the scope requirements. Now, in a previous session, we spoke about various processes of project scope management knowledge area. There was a process called collect requirement. So how are we going to collect requirement? How are we going to prioritize them? Are we going to use interviewing technique? At who are the stakeholders who are essential for identifying requirement? How are we going to identify those stakeholders? So the process of identifying those stakeholders, communicating with them, interacting with them, documenting the list of requirement, and then prioritizing those requirements is documented in requirement management plan. If you talk about process direction, requirement management plan is an essential input for a collect requirement. Requirement management plan is an essential input for validate scope. It also used as a part of project management plan in a control scope process. So how do we create these two outputs? So let us look at tools and techniques and inputs. This is a subsidiary plan of project management plan, but we do have few things written in a project management plan which is required for making scope management plan and requirement management plan, like what kind of life cycles we are going to use, what is a guideline for detailing which is coming from a project management plan. So project management plan is one of the essential input. Now you will see in this process we are using PMP as an input also, and these two outputs which are coming out of this process will also become an input or a part of a subsidiary plan of project management plan. It's a very initial time process, like creating a scope management plan happens in a very initial stage of the project. Now, a lot of company does not have a defined template for documenting scope management plan, and it get documented as a part of project management plan only, but it all depends the type of complexity you have in your project. The another input which is needed to create a scope management plan is project charter. Why? Because project charter communicates expectation of end users, sponsors from this project. And it also communicates a level of rigor or level of control needed for managing the scope. If you want to change the scope, how are you going to change it? That process is written in a scope management plan. If you want to And this change process is integrated with perform integrated change control, but the trigger, the initial steps are written here. Along with this, our standard inputs, enterprise environmental factor and organization process assets are anyway needed. Talking about templates, giving me how to document this, what all structures, and the enterprise environmental factor will tell me many various soft issues like who must be included while making a communication plan for scope management plan. Now, how do we do it? Simple. Experts come together with their thinking, they do a meeting and put their mind in it, which is called expert judgment. So, not many tools and techniques. We have project management plan, we have charter, we put our mind, we have a meeting, relevant stakeholders, and then we identify how are we going to manage scope and requirement.